Okay, for our introduction to biology, we look at what makes something alive. Biology is the study of forms of life, but life is not easy to define. So we have everything that's living from fungi to bacteria to even these gigantic redwoods and sequoia trees, and then things like animals and humans. And then we even have things that are between the range of living and non-living, such as viruses. All living things share the following characteristics. They are made of cells, they have DNA, they obtain and use energy, they grow and develop, they reproduce, they respond to their environment, they maintain homeostasis, and they change over time. All organisms are made up of cells, and a cell is the basic unit of life. A cell can be in any form. It could be a plant cell, an animal cell, a bacterial cell, fungal cell, etc. But all living things have at least one cell. Living things also have genetic material that carries out life functions and gets passed on to the next generation. Your DNA makes you you. Your DNA determines the proteins that are made for all of the life processes in your body. So all living things must have that genetic material to carry out all of the life processes, from determining the color of your hair to what digestive proteins may be produced. All organisms need a source of energy for their life processes. Some organisms get energy from sunlight or chemicals. This would be things like plants and algae that may undergo photosynthesis, or even bacteria with chemosynthesis. Other organisms, such as animals and bacteria, can get their energy from eating other organisms. So whether you're eating plants or whether you are eating animals, you are still eating something that was once living. Growth and development. The process of development allows organisms to mature and gain the ability to reproduce. Growth is just an increase in size. Most organisms start in an immature state and must grow and develop to reach the adult stage. So one example of growth and development, if you can see our tadpole over here on the right, if that tadpole only went through growth, then the adult version would just be a larger version of this. But because it goes through development and growth, we get the entire process of metamorphosis, and then we get an adult frog from that process. Members of a species must be able to produce offspring to pass on their genetic information to the next generation. So certain members of a species must be able to produce offspring to continue that species. Then there's a response to the environment. All organisms must react to their environment to survive. Some bugs move away from light if you pick up a rock. That would be like a survival mechanism for them, because usually when other organisms are picking up rocks, light would indicate that they are about to be eaten. So one of their survival mechanisms is to run away from any light source. For humans, one example would be the pupils. If you go out into bright sunlight, and there's a typo on this slide, but if you would go out into bright sunlight, your pupils would shrink. Otherwise, the sensitive nerves in your eyes could get damaged from the amount of light that's going through there. And likewise, if you go into a dark room, your pupils will dilate so that your eye can receive more light and help you process images there. Then there's maintaining homeostasis. Homeostasis is keeping the internal environment constant. Temperature, water levels, and blood sugar must stay constant in humans for survival. Any living thing, it must stay constant, but those are some of the specific things that humans need to stay constant. So one example is the blood or the body temperature example. If your body temperature decreases, you will start to shiver so that your muscles can shake and warm up the rest of your body. If your body temperature raises too much, you're actually going to sweat, and that's a mechanism for keeping your body cool. Anything outside of that temperature range that is normal, and you risk having like heat stroke or other cases of like hypothermia, and both are very dangerous. Change over time. Living populations gradually accumulate small changes over time. We call this evolution. Evolution takes a really long time to occur, and it's very difficult to see direct evidence of, just because it does take so long. But we do have some evidence, direct evidence of those populations. Things like bacteria are becoming resistant to antibiotics just from overuse of antibiotics. What happens is the individual bacteria that were resistant to those antibiotics were the only ones that were able to survive after antibiotics were used, and then those bacteria reproduced and reproduced and reproduced to create entire populations of bacteria that are actually resistant to antibiotics. And in some cases, those populations are resistant to more than one antibiotic.